Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Regional Development Assessment Panel. I declare the meeting open at 9:51 a.m. and I acknowledge we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters, and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with our DAP standing orders under the DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with the DAP regulations. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Take the opportunity to introduce the members that will be participating today. My name is Dale Page. I'm the presiding member for today. With me in the room to my left, I have Karen Hyde, Deputy Presiding Member, and Andrew Howe, Specialist Member. For Part C, the Shire of Exmouth, we'll be joined by Councillor Gary Mounsey and Councillor Christy Devereaux. And for Part D, the Shire of Capel, we will have Councillor Martin Voyes and Councillor Sebastian Sciano. Item 2, apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Peter McCleary for the Shire of Capel. Item 3, a noting of minutes. Minutes of all previous DAP meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving to Part B of our agenda, the Shire of Coorow. Item 1, declaration of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all the information? That's unanimous, thank you. Disclosures of interest. We don't have any local government members for this application, so I don't need to ask them about whether this has been to a council meeting or not. Other members in the room, do you have any disclosures you'd like to make in relation to the item? No. All right. Item 3, Form 1 DAP applications. There are nil for Coorow today, so we'll move on to Item 4, Form 2 DAP applications. Item 4.1 is Lot 10850, 1433 Garibaldi Willis Road, Warradage. Modifications to approval for a hydrogen processing plant, DAP number 21/02071. We have one presenter on this item today, Hide Shigeyoshi from GHD. Hide, I remind you that in accordance with our DAP standing orders, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes. We have read what you have sent in so far. I will call you to time at your 3 minutes and then panel members will be able to ask you questions after your presentation. Your 3 minutes starts when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Presiding Member. Just confirming you can hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. Yep, technology sometimes. Yes, I just wanted to do a quick presentation just to firstly thank the Shire and Mark for a comprehensive report. And in terms of the recommendation for approval, that is great. The application was subject to DAP consideration a few years ago, so we're just, as noted in the report, seeking amendments to the extension of time. I just wanted to note for condition 9, as noted in my deputation request, just the removal of that on the basis that there is a DG license process that will follow suit on this. But I also wanted to note, I am happy to take some questions on the officer's alternative recommendation to the DAP about the location too. That is something that would be preferred from the client, if possible, due to the changing sort of landscape of that area. Ultimately, we're looking at a whole site where this facility may be sort of positioned depending on other what's happening in terms of development for the wider area, namely the Warradage Stage 1 and 2 wind farm. So there are no real encumbrances to that location, and from our perspective can be managed as part of a condition of approval, and the officer's condition is fine in that regard as well. I'm happy to take further questions on that, but ultimately, yeah, the main purpose of this extension is just to maintain a approval for the facility as well. So ultimately, getting that current location with those conditions is the primary aim, and certainly the intent of the applicant to develop that facility as well. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And happy to take any questions as mentioned.
Thanks, Hide. Members, any questions of the presenter?
Just one, thank you. Presiding member Karen Hyde speaking. Hide, the condition 9 that appears associated with this form 2, it's the same as the condition that you received first time round?
Yes.
Is this just an opportunity to tighten up the approval, or are there particular difficulties with it?
No, exactly that. Yeah, just to tighten up approvals and just to avoid any repetition on processes that would otherwise be addressed by or through the DG licensing process anyway. There'll be a quantitative assessment that forms part of the wider package to DMERS, or sorry, LGERS now. So yeah, you know, they're really, it is an area where the GERS would address any risk considerations, and you know, put simply, we wouldn't get a facility license approved if it doesn't get through that process.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, no need for this for Shire, I think, to examine that area any further.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
No. Hide, just on location 2, so you've talked about the merits of location 2, and the Shire has covered that off in the report, but I'm curious if it's such a good location for this facility. Understand that you have to do all the due diligence for it, but if it's really a preferable location, why haven't you come forward with the studies that support it to the DAP at this point?
Yeah, look, I think it's, and to be frank, it's a cost consideration for the project as well. And given the I suppose the project, there's other commercial I'll call it sort of deals and projects that are in the pipeline, and as mentioned, stage 2 of the wind farm is currently being commencing construction as well. From what I understand, there are other sort of projects in the pipeline in that area as well, and that's where the uncertainty is with the location. Given that this is such a small facility, it's quite nimble in its ability to locate anywhere within that site, and through not just this application but previous applications for the wind farm, you know, those studies have confirmed that the site is relatively unencumbered at that as well. So from my perspective, I suppose there is a degree of certainty that we can locate this small facility in the grand scheme of the wider wind farm and future projects for that wider area, within the realms of, you know, still complying with DG licensing requirements, noise setback requirements, and bushfire and the like as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it's unconventional. I know it's slightly unconventional for from a planning application perspective. And I suppose, sorry, and I just wanted to add there was some consideration and comments with the Shire early on, and some concerns that, look, you know, as part of an amendment, whether changing the location and just fixing it to that one constituted a you know, not an amendment as well. Hence why we adopted the sort of 1 and 2 approach in this instance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Unless there are more questions for Hide, we will move to the local government. We've got Mark Helsel with us today for the Shire of Coorow. Mark, not asking you to present on what's on the RDAP, but is there anything you want to respond to what Hide has put forward? Otherwise, we'll just move straight to questions, if that's all right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess it sounds like the 2 main points made there were in respect of condition 9, a qualitative risk assessment. Obviously, we've followed through with that condition. I did make one recommendation for a modification for 1 word in that condition, which isn't really that significant. But really just to carry forward, you know, the objectives of the DAP decision previous, acknowledging the fact, though, that it does appear that Dangerous Goods Act assessments would probably consider all of this. I guess not having dealt with something like a hydrogen plant before, it felt like obviously there's quite a lot of risk attached to a premises like this and the trucks moving in and out of it. So it did seem like a relevant planning issue that might be good to cover and maintain. But I think if the DAP was of the view that it felt comfortable that the dangerous goods process can sufficiently analyse that information and deal with it, then maybe that condition isn't necessary. Also, turning to the issue of the location too, I mean, obviously, when considering an application for a modification which involves very limited application fee, very limited amount of information submitted in respect to the alternate location, it just didn't seem to be reasonably such a minor consideration that you would normally take. So in principle, that became the fundamental issue from a planning assessment. And so, there are quite a number of things that have been kicked down the road in respect of conditions that are recommended already. And I think if location 2 was considered, you'd be doing that nearly with everything. So it just didn't seem reasonable. It sounds to me like the proponent's fairly happy with the recommendation we've put, and it just comes down to whether or not other legislation adequately deals with the risk element or not, and whether or not it might still be good to have that condition so that the Shire's involved in that assessment process, and maybe that tool might be useful when dealing with dangerous goods authority.
Thank you for that. Just on condition 9, I'm wondering I'm just trying to think through the process. So if condition 9 stays in place and you get that qualitative risk assessment, who would you rely on to determine whether it's adequate enough, would you then rely on the state government department that's going to do the licensing anyway, or do you have your own independent expertise to tell you whether or not that risk assessment is adequate or not?
No, well, we don't. And yeah, obviously that's what we would do. We would liaise with that agency anyway for key advice, and to be honest, it's been quite tricky trying to nail down the right people who would give you advice on a hydrogen plant. That was quite a task in itself. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Members, questions of Mark? I have one more, but I'll
No, Mark's answered the question I was going to ask. Thank you.
Only one. Hi, Mark. Whether it's only a note, but note 8 seems to refer to the Dangerous Goods Safety Guide. And then, of course, there's a sort of a note 14 that says you'll need a dangerous goods license, which presumably, in order to get that, you've noted the guide. And so they just seem to be a bit sort of doubling up from what I can tell.
Yeah, I do apologize. This report has been tricky to put together because I've been getting filtering information through from government agencies, and I think that's just a sequencing in putting the report together. I do feel like it was hard with a bit of repetition, but again, I agree with you. You could probably change those things if need be. It was just, I don't think there's any harm in giving advice to proponents. It's not exactly a major issue.
Thank you. Just one last thing from me, Mark. Advice note 11 states that if a building permit is required, then an updated bushfire management plan will be required. But doesn't condition 7 require an updated bushfire management plan anyway, or is that advice note referring to further updates to the plan if more changes are proposed or required through the building permit process?
Yeah, again, I think that's what's happened there is, through the chair, the building surveyor's advised of that, and that's been a direct transfer from the building surveyor's comments. You're correct in the fact that the condition does require an updated bushfire management plan anyway, and so I think that maybe that advice note could be amended.
Okay. Amended or deleted?
Well, it could be deleted. I mean, it's again advice that if a building permit is required, an amended bushfire management plan is going to be provided anyway, so it could be deleted.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. All right, no more questions for Mark. We will then move to the report that we have in front of us, which recommends approval of this Form 2 application subject to some amended conditions. Could I seek a mover and seconder for that? Moved. Member Hyde, seconded. How? Member Hyde.
Thank you. I'm comfortable with accepting this as a Form 2 as the RAR recommendation is worded, in that the proposal doesn't change the footprint, the design, and whilst it increases production significantly, still the fundamentals of the development are consistent with that previously approved. And the technical reports indicate that it doesn't have any significant additional or undue impact. I'm not comfortable with approving an alternate location. I note the applicant's reference to the Planning Act, but in that regard, we need to be satisfied that any conditions do not imply a substantial change to the development. And I think in this situation, they would. So comfortable with the current location as proposed. I would suggest an amendment 1 to delete condition 9.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Member Howe.
Thank you. My reason would be that it is covered adequately by external licenses and goes beyond the planning framework. I think those external authorities, as we've heard from the city, are perhaps better placed to deal with this kind of goods licensing and consideration of the qualitative risk. It's already highlighted in a number of advice notes that the applicant will need to go through those external processes, so I think it can be deleted from the condition list.
Thank you. Member, how do you wish to speak?
I only to say that I agree with everything that Member Hyde said, and the second location, I think, can't be considered without the information. I think puts too great a impost on the local authority to have to deal with every single part of that through a condition of information.
Sorry, we're just dealing with the amendment.
Sorry, the amendment. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, no, happy to again have duplication.
All right, I don't wish to speak to the amendment, so let's vote on that amendment. All those in favour? Carried. Do you wish to close any further before we?
No.
Okay. Member Howe, back to you.
Oh, sorry, just finishing off. There's still a lot in the conditions as it is for the local authority to have to deal with. And as I said, this is the first sort of energy plant of this type to deal with. Condition 4 talks about clearance of road reserves and things up to, in the report it talks about 300 metres of that, which is a lot of clearing to be considering. So there's still a lot of detail to be resolved, and I think any more by considering a location 2 would be inappropriate.
Excellent, thank you. I'm not going to speak to the planning merit or the appropriateness of the use or the acceptability of the proposal in a more general sense. This was covered off in the original application and associated DAP approval. I'll briefly focus on the proposed changes only. Happy to support the changes proposed. I'm satisfied they fall within the scope of a Form 2 application, subject to removal of location 2 from the proposal as per condition 2. I agree with the other members that inclusion of location 2 would constitute quite a significant change to the proposal, specifically given we don't have the technical information to give us the comfort there'd be no undue impacts of locating the facility at location 2. I acknowledge we could condition the approval to require those technical studies to substantiate the suitability of location 2 to the satisfaction of the Shire at a later date. But it's clear the Shire doesn't support that approach, and I don't think it's appropriate to saddle the Shire with the burden of making the call on that later at a later stage. I support the other changes proposed. I think the proposed changes to the layout represent a very similar format of development to the one previously approved. Loading and unloading arrangements are similar, even though the size of the trucks will change. I note that Main Roads has no objection to the proposal, and the traffic impact statement makes some recommendations relating to the access point, clearing needed to improve site distances, installation of signage and guideposts, and Shire approval for use of the road in wet weather conditions. And those requirements have been reinforced through conditions of approval that appear to be acceptable to the applicant. I also support the inclusion of changes to the operational management plan condition to address the issue of hydrogen levels stored on site given the proposed increase in production and potential periods where movement of the hydrogen is restricted through wet weather road conditions. I note that 2 submissions of concern were received when this Form 2 was advertised for public comment, but I'm satisfied that the issues that were raised relate primarily to the merits of the proposal generally, which were already considered and covered off in the original application and associated DAP approval. I would like to move an amendment to delete advice note 11 because it's already covered by condition. I have a second. Thank you, Member Hyde. I don't think we need to speak to this more. It's an advice note that was added, but it's redundant and unnecessary. Do you wish to speak to that amendment? All right, let's vote on that amendment. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. That concludes my comments on the substantive motion. I'll hand back to the mover.
To go to vote, presiding member.
Sorry?
Happy to go to vote?
Yes. Okay. Let us vote on the substantive then. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 5, section 31, SAT reconsiderations for Coorow. So with that, we will now move to part C of our agenda, which deals with the item for the Shire of Exmouth. I would like to welcome Councillor Gary Mounsey and Councillor Christy Devereux to the panel, our local government DAP members for the Shire of Exmouth. I think we have them online. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
For those new to the meeting for this part, I remind everyone that the meeting is being run in accordance with our DAP standing orders, and panel members may refer to technical devices throughout our meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Item 1 for part C, declaration of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within part C of the agenda and part C related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all information? That's unanimous, thank you. Disclosures of interest. Could I check with our local government members whether this application has been before you at a briefing or a council meeting? We can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, I've had it at a briefing.
But not for myself.
Okay, so was that a briefing of just yourself or the council laws as a
The whole
group?
council. We've just been aware of the development on the cards. Yeah.
Okay. All right. In that case, I will just for the notes and for anybody watching online, there is a standing declaration of interest that if the agenda items have been considered by councillors at a briefing or a council meeting, they acknowledge that they have participated, but they are not bound by any previous decisions or resolution of the local government, and that they will exercise independent judgment in relation to the matters before them. I think that is fine, and therefore we will permit the councillor from participating and voting in relation to this application. Moving on then, are there any other interests that members wish to declare? No? All right, moving on to item 3 then, Form 1 DAP application today, lot 510 Kerry Graham Road, Exmouth, proposed tourism development DAP number 25/03024. We have one presentation on this today. We have Michael Wilcock and Luca Martins with us from TBB Planning. Please come forward. You know the drill. You have your 3 minutes, and we'll call you to time at your 3 minutes. Ask you questions as appropriate. Your 3 minutes starts when you are ready. So Michael, you'll be doing the presentation.
Yes, I can operate 2 things at once, I believe. That's a PowerPoint or a PDF?
It would just be PDF.
Yeah. All right. How do I operate it from here?
This one's just going to get it up and you just click through. If it doesn't work, just let us know because it's a bit temperamental.
Okay.
Chris.
Just getting the hang of it. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to present in favour of this application. The fundamental objective today for our client is to obtain development approval and we wish to thank the Shire for their continued support and efforts with both the Scheme Amendment 11, which was gazetted, and this development application, and particularly the recommendation for approval by assessing officers. The development is straightforward and appropriate, especially with the land appropriately zoned tourism and being located in the Exmouth town site. The resort project is the culmination of our client's vision to found and operate a bespoke, high-end boutique tourism development in Exmouth. The site was found by the owners and their family, and they embarked upon obtaining a lease of Crown land. And TBB has assisted with the finalisation of both that lease of Crown land, the Scheme Amendment 11, which rezoned the site to tourism with restricted uses, and lodging this development application. The development importantly responds to its environmental setting. It is elevated on a dual system behind the golf course's clubhouse, and it's primarily there in response to being sited away from the modelled floodplains within the dual system and the 100-year Char Map setback set by the Shire of Exmouth's Char Map itself. The line of sight modelling, which was discussed through the EPA as part of the scheme amendment and reviewed and prepared for this development application, ensures that the development's lighting cannot directly get to the beach, which has a potential turtle nesting location by virtue of the Gulf's dual system immediately east of the development. Essentially, this is a unique and low impact small scale project that needs to be self-sufficient in terms of power, water treatment, wastewater and effluent disposal. It is not connected to Horizon Power or Water Corporation services. The regional setting of the project and the associated pricing associated with construction costs are a key matter for this project. The development is designed to be to a high standard in line with the client's sustainability principles and utilising locally sourced materials, enhancing its connection to its location and its setting. We respectfully request that there will be modifications and or deletion of conditions through the lens of ensuring that all of the conditions put forward can be imposed to effectively and efficiently facilitate delivery of the project, but also to avoid duplication of any other permits, licenses or other approvals through other government agencies, to which our client is already engaging quite heavily with those relevant authorities. Overall, the project's to a very high standard and we look forward to answering any questions that the panel may have.
Thank you very much. We will move first, we'll close our presentation and we'll move first to our members online. Councillors, do you have any questions of this presenter? We can't hear you. Do you have any questions?
Sorry.
No, we don't have any questions.
We asked.
Oh,
Just wanted to clarify the workforce accommodation for the site. We just need to make sure that that will be staffing accommodation only, not general workers accommodation.
Through the chair, the presiding member, yes, the workforce on site is for operational staff, whether it's the resort manager, security, if they need security to be on site for any particular reason, other staff to enhance the 24-hour high-end tourism offering that they're requesting for, not for construction workforce or workforce for other businesses around it.
Thank you.
Further questions, councillor?
No, thank you.
All right, members in the room, questions for the applicant? Member Hyde.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Michael. Just in regard to the changes that you've requested to be made to some of the conditions, and you've suggested a replacement for conditions 2 and 3 related to the landscape. Can I check, is this landscape to be reticulated?
No.
Not. Okay.
It's to be irrigated where possible from water that they'll be preparing themselves through their wastewater treatment plant. The site doesn't have any potable water connections. It needs to have a groundwater license to obtain saline water from aquifer. Through the client's engagement with D where there will be a need to use those 2 bores to obtain that water. So of course they have allocation limitations. There's also aquifer recharge for that brine, which will go back into the subterranean aquifer itself. Some of that water would be used for the pool and for the facilities within the development itself, and some sort of, I guess, for the 3-par golf putting green and the like, but essentially the sites aim to be kept to a remnant vegetation or to use low water.
Okay, thank you. And further in your rewording, the part that starts the landscaped areas must be planted and established. You go on to say in accordance with the approved landscaping plan. But what would the timing be for that? Would that be prior to occupation and operation that would be established?
Ideally, yes, we could have the plan prepared alongside the detailed building plans so that it's demonstrating that there's an integrated connection to the landscaping and the built form. Ideally, the implementation would be following or prior to occupation once
Okay.
construction's occurred.
Thank you for that. I've got some other questions, please. In terms of the amendments requested to condition 18 and 19, you're requesting deletion of those. Am I understanding correctly that you're not in a floodplain and you're not within the 100-metre setback? You'll be on the 100-metre setback coastal erosion. So is your proposition that flood management is not needed because flooding is unlikely to occur?
That's correct. Through the leasing arrangements for the land, there are actually clauses that if buildings are within the char map setback, then the lease is potentially void. So buildings are set back from the char map setback as a means to retain the lease conditions. And through the elevation on that journal system next to the clubhouse, there is the ability to be outside that floodplain.
Okay, thank you. Further then, in terms of condition 20, which you're requesting deletion to, which is the upgrade of that 100 metres of track, you're obviously questioning the need and nexus in your deputation. Could you explain to me how that portion of track is likely to be used by this development? You know, what's the proportional use for this development as opposed to other users of that part of the track?
The TIS looks at the existing sort of traffic volumes there are from 2022/2023, so a little bit closer to COVID than potentially what the volumes might be now. So what we've looked at is there's a proportionate amount of, it's probably 55 or 60% existing traffic. We're contributing at a very optimistic level just through the TIS that there's 200 to 240 vehicle movements per day. That's including all of the uses probably at maximum capacity. So that would be all of the suites, the restaurant, the bars, everything's absolutely going really well for the client, I would suggest. So the traffic volumes per day are commensurate to what the modelling already suggests are using that road. What the road is actually doing is primarily functioning to use or to provide access to the golf course. There's also access through to the town beach, you know, for the residents and for the tourists that like to drive along the beach. So we would suggest, in consideration of what the project's looking at doing, it's trying to deliver a high-end bespoke but regionally sort of consistent sort of visual aesthetic to the project. So I think when we talked to the client, they were looking at Salsalis, which has a 360 metre long access track of a similar sort of grade and materiality for their entry road, which provides that sense of arrival and enhances the local sort of character of the area versus a fully paved road itself. We've also looked into potential costs for that connection, for that upgrade. And based on what we know, it could get up towards 800 per metre, for example, just for a road, which if you look at 100 metres, that's another $80,000 that potentially we don't know if that estimate's completely accurate, but it's a ballpark figure of what that translates into in terms of the cost item for the project. When we look at the regional sort of cost escalation for the project overall, factoring in the 1% public art, factoring in the road upgrade, there are potentially sort of additional cost elements that factor into this project. And of course, the primary emphasis is to deliver the high-end accommodation itself.
Okay, thank you. And just with regard to the new advice note related to condition 21, that your wording as proposed to us is rather written in a form that looks like a condition in its own right. So I'm just wondering if some softening of that might be more acceptable, just to suggest that those pieces of infrastructure are to be constructed with trafficable crushed limestone consistent with the stormwater management plan, something along those lines. Did you have a view on that wording?
I think that sounds perfectly reasonable and appropriate to be conveyed as advice. Thank you.
Nothing further from me, thank you.
Only in relation to the lighting issue, which you stated had sort of been reviewed as a lease area, that the light, if it was built behind the setback, couldn't fall to the beach. So what is your concern about condition 8 in that sense? If your light won't fall on the beach, why are you worried about?
I think we're looking at it through the lens of what is capable of being enforced from a local government development condition perspective, rather than the actual lighting itself. The condition 7 relates to designing the lighting to meet federal guidelines, which are potentially of a greater level of rigour than the Commission's Astrotourism position statement on dark sky principles and the Australian standards. So the design of the lighting, the positioning, and the intensity of the lighting and where it's designed and located and how it functions is all embedded into those guidelines and the Australian standards themselves. So we didn't see that this needed to be reconveyed in condition 8, which can be more, in our views, just the trigger for submitting the lighting management plan without an add-on sentence. Thanks.
Anything further?
Nothing.
Nothing from me. You answered the question I had already, so that's great. We will now move to questions of our local government officers. We have Tony Dowling and Ben Lewis with us today from the Shire of Exmouth. Would you like to make any comments on the deputation that has been made, or straight to questions?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak. No, generally with the conditions, most of them, I don't have a problem with some of the rewording of the fairly standard ones. But basically the conditions are where they say execute the management plan. Basically, with all the attachments that came with the application, we just basically, if it's going to be approved, let's then implement and enforce the requirements or commitments made in those plans. But in regard to condition 20, the Shire is insistent upon that the access road, at least to the driveway into the facility, to being upgraded to its standards, and I believe they would like to see it formalised and bitumen or asphalt sealed or something along those lines. Also, the CEO advised me this morning that the track to the beach immediately north of this site is all defence land, and I think there's pressure on the council to actually sort of limit or restrict access on the beach to the northern side. So I think in some point in the future there will be possibly limited access through that track to the beach. So the public going down that road might not be significant, but because the resort people are relying on that access, the Shire believes that they should fund the upgrading of the road, which would be mostly to their benefit. So.
Thank you very much. We might then just move to questions. I'm going to start with our local government members online. Questions for the Shire staff?
Sorry, technical difficulties.
None of the Shire staff.
No, none of the Shire staff. Thank you.
Okay, great. Members in the room. Member Hyde.
Thank you. Could I just pursue you on condition 20 a little bit further? We don't know what Defence are going to do or say in the future, and so therefore it's a possible but an unknown as to whether there will still be public access. Does Defence use that portion of the track at the moment?
To be honest, I don't know. You'd have to, perhaps one of the councillors might be able to answer that one. Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
I'm not familiar with all the background to this project, so
Okay.
came in at
Right.
the last minute, if you like.
Right. I don't know. Did the officer has suggested that the elected members might know the answer to my question, and that was whether Defence Forces use that track to get access to the beach, given that it's been suggested that they might wish that access to be closed to the public or for access to that beach
I
area.
think it's more to do with the actual beach, but the Defence may be closing off the beach.
Yeah, the Defence currently use it in small portions to do patrolling, so security patrols of the beach.
Okay. All right.
Very minimal. It's mainly
Okay.
during the season to make sure that the backpackers aren't using it.
Okay. Thank you. It's local government responsibility at the moment, though, that portion of the track, that, as I understand, this is to the officer.
Yeah, it's a Gazetta Road up to, I think, the end of the property. In terms of who manages the beach, I wouldn't know. It might be unallocated Crown land, but the state generally has, in the past, has had a view that the local government should manage all its beaches.
Okay. Am I to understand, though, as we focused on condition 20, that you don't have any particular issues with any of the rewording or deletion or argument put forward by the applicant on the other conditions?
Not really.
Okay, thank you.
Member Howe?
Yeah, so you're requiring the upgrade of a road on private land, or what is essentially now private land because it's part of a 21-year lease. Is that correct?
The Shire are requiring the upgrade of a public road.
So, okay.
Yeah, the Shire aren't going to sort of seal it or do anything like that. Certainly not in the near future.
On other things, is there any reason why? I mean, it's a fairly high-profile site, one of the first that's been developed along the foreshore in there. This didn't have a design review by anyone. Is that? Do you understand why?
I'm aware of.
Okay. And would that normally be something that you would request?
I've never been involved in a design review before. As I said, I sort of came in late on this project, so the application had previously been lodged, and I think there was a previous approval or previous concept or whatever. I'm not sure. So yeah, I didn't refer it to the design review panel. Possibly could have benefited from it, but professionally and personally, I think the design suits the site. I think they've done a fairly good job in trying to achieve a development that tends to blend into the dual landscape.
And in regard to condition 8 and the lighting,
Yes.
do you have a comment on the fact of your ability to actually manage a curfew in that sense? I mean, as a planning condition?
I think one of the submitters raised a general concern about the impact of lighting, and then Michael, in his response to the submission, he actually suggested a motion activated or curfew for the lighting. So basically, because he acknowledged that, we just put it in as a standard or a condition to manage that lighting.
Yeah, so there's no sort of council policy or anything regarding light spill onto the beaches anywhere at this stage. Yeah, okay.
Further?
Thank you. No, thanks.
I just have a few questions, if you don't mind. So in the table on page 5 of your responsible authority report, it outlines that a tourist development is a D use in the tourism zone. But on page 8, the Shire refers to it as an A use. Could you just confirm for me that it is a D use and not an A use?
Sorry, just one moment. I've got to- So can you repeat that again, please?
So page 5 in that table, it specifies a tourist development is a D or a discretionary use in the tourism zone. But on page 8, there's some commentary about it being an A use. Could you just confirm for us that it is a D use and not an A use? So discretionary and that's okay. If you're not able to,
It's just my
that
the screen's jumping up and
that's okay. If you don't have the scheme document, that's fine.
You have a copy of the scheme.
I could actually ask the applicant as well. So, Michael, can you confirm whether it's a D use or an A use?
Through the chair, it's a tourism zone, but through initiating the scheme amendment, there was a special use zone put forward. And then the DPLH indicated that through planning reform, we are to apply a standardised zone. And through that, there are restricted uses which are aligned to the lease conditions in terms of being low impact. So as a result, tourist development's a P use through the restrictions.
So it's neither D nor A, it's a P use.
P use.
That's okay. All right, thank you. That's good. And then I just wanted to check with the Shire. There's obviously a very strong desire for this development to sit very lightly on the land and blend into the development. How do you see the public art component being inserted into that context? Have you had conversations with the proponent about what that could look like?
no, I haven't. I don't know whether the council has or whether councillors. Yeah, don't know. Sorry.
Okay. And then in relation to condition 4, it requires execution of the environmental management plan prior to any works commencing. But shouldn't that be prior to commencement of use or for the duration of the project actually, not just prior to works commencing? Where I read it, that environmental management plan, most of the stuff that will happen or most of the application of that plan will be during works and during ongoing operations. So to me, that plan can't really be executed prior to works commencing. Do you agree with that? And look, sorry, I'll go on. I think there's the same need for ongoing implementation that should apply to the bushfire management plan, bushfire emergency plan in condition 12, the waste management plan in condition 13, and the wastewater management plan in condition 16 and 17. So it's lacking wording about ongoing implementation of those plans. So I'm just checking in whether or not there's any opposition to us tidying up those conditions.
I guess with executing all those plans, there are a number of commitments made in those plans. So once you execute it, then obviously the commitments have to be fulfilled. So that's the way I would see it. And I guess, yeah, I mean, if it can be worded better to reflect that, I'm happy with that. But yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Unless there are more questions of the local government. Sorry, councillor, someone has their hand up.
Sorry, yeah.
Just in regards to the local lighting, with the lighting situation, we've been made aware that the lighting condition is part of the DBCA turtle management plan. So that comes from their side of the government department to make that as a condition.
Thank you, councillor. Right, let us move to the report now. We have a recommendation in the RA for approval, subject to a number of conditions. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Moved member Hyde. Do I have a seconder? Seconded member Howe. Member Hyde, as mover, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, presiding member. Yes, I do. I also want to make some amendments, so I'll just briefly speak to the matter. I do support this development, being a tourist development in the tourist zone and noting the P use as confirmed. I think it's consistent generally with the structure plan and also aiming to be compliant with the strict restrictions of the lease, which whilst outside of the planning framework certainly have had an influence on the proposal. 5 submissions, the majority of them in support. This is a relatively low impact development designed clearly on sustainability principles. The percent of the lot's natural native vegetation remains intact. It certainly provides additional and relatively unique in its nature of its high-end status, short stay accommodation for visitors and tourists. There's obviously the opportunity for events which will provide for local community as well as for visitors from outside. So I think it therefore is in line with the overarching objectives of the planning framework and also the state's tourism strategy. That said, presiding member, I'd like to make a number of condition changes. Amendment one is to delete conditions 2 and 3 of the RAR and to add the applicant's wording as an alternate, but with a minor amendment to the second paragraph, if you will, that falls under C, where it starts, the landscaped areas must be planted and established. I would like to add the words prior to occupation and operation, and then continue with the remainder of the applicant's word.
Thank you. Before I move to a seconder, there are some dot points listed there about what the landscape plan should include.
Yes.
Should we add a dot point about irrigation details?
Well, that was why I asked the question about reticulation, but we could just simply say irrigation details. I'd be comfortable with.
Are you happy to move that?
Adding
with
that.
addition? Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment?
Yes.
Thank you, councillor Mounsey. Do you wish to speak to that amendment?
I was a little concerned at the generality and lack of, I guess, specificity in the landscape documents that were provided. They're a strong concept, but nonetheless, we don't know what plant's going where and so on and so forth. So a lot of that spatial treatment that one would ordinarily anticipate as part of this development, particularly given it's a public use, I think needs to follow. So I was pleased to see the applicant's alternate provided because that was consistent with my thinking about replacing those conditions initially. So I'm comfortable to take this on board, and I think certainly the way that they're watered, even if it is in terms of the sustainable water management process, would be useful to have, and certainly would prefer to see the landscape established or planted prior to occupation so that we don't have works and construction going on at the same time. I think it's for everybody's best interest that that timing is specified in the condition.
Thank you. Councillor Mounsey, as seconder to this amendment, do you wish to speak? No? Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? No? All right, let's put this amendment, do you wish to close?
No.
Let's put this amendment 1 to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you, Member Hunt.
Thank you. Amendment 2 relates to conditions 5 and 6 and a deletion of those conditions.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Member Howe, do you wish to speak?
I think that proposed condition 4 requires execution and implementation of that environmental management plan. That's subject to external review, as I understand the process through the DBCA. I think it's actually quite difficult for the Shire, therefore, to find a place in that process. There's also requirements, I think, under the lease arrangement too. So I feel that that's covered by those external processes and encapsulated within the EMP required as condition 4.
Thank you. And how do you wish to speak?
No, I think
Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? No, let's put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you.
Thank you. Amendment 3 would be to delete the second sentence of condition 8, which refers to the curfew timing.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Howe.
I think it's quite difficult, as Member Howe previously posed to. Wait a minute, am I in the right one here? Yeah, I am. To administer that curfew. I noticed it's probably cropped up through conversations that might be something that management might do, some sort of sensitivity about lighting after hours, or just power saving or resource saving. But I think it's already covered by a number of matters, particularly condition 7, which deals with the national light pollution guidelines for wildlife, which was referred to by one of the elected members, and Australian standards, which also control obtrusive lighting. So I think it's covered, and in some respects it's a duplication, but something that would be hard to administer.
All right. Member Howe, do you wish to speak?
nothing further to add. Thanks.
Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? No, let's put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously.
Okay. Amendment 4 relates to condition 11, which deletes the sentence "no fencing is permitted to be installed eastwards of the Charmap setback datum line."
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Howe. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
I take the point that there are certain requirements under the lease to contain this development. I think it's also a process that's required as part of the undertakings for fire management. So I think just being consistent with those, I think the condition at the moment suggests some level of inconsistency.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Only to say that they're leasing the land, and I think it's reasonable that they be able to be given the tools to manage it accordingly.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? No. Let's put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you, Member Howe.
Amendment 5 is to delete conditions 14 and 15.
you. That relates to the potable water management plan.
Indeed, it does.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? How?
This is administered through DWER, who provide abstraction licenses, and therefore through that process monitor the amount abstracted, the qualities, etc., on a regular basis. And so I believe that's something that's better administered through that government agency rather than through Shire. Again, I'm not sure of the Shire's role under these conditions, so I believe it's better administered outside of the scheme and under DWER.
Thank you. Member Howe, do you wish to speak?
Nothing further.
Any other member wish to speak for or against that amendment? No. Should we put, Councillor Mounsey, do you wish to say something?
I think this is in place because of our local water sourcing and how restricted it is. So I'm not sure on how to move forward with it.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Devereux, do you wish to?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Mounsey is saying, because our water supply is quite limited. I think the fear for the Shire is that, yes, they're managing their own water here, but if that for some reason goes offline and they need to tap into our water, our mains water, that's a real risk to the community or to our water supply. So I don't know if we can word something to ensure that doesn't happen, or
I think in the event that does happen, that requires a completely separate process outside of this, that's subject to state government control, which I think Member Hyde raised initially. So that will be dealt with. If that occurs, there'll need to be a separate approvals process for that through the state government. Okay, I do not wish to speak to that amendment. Do you wish to close?
No, comfortable to vote.
Right. Let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, councillors, were you voting against the amendment? For the amendment? There's a slight delay.
yeah,
For the amendment, based on what you just said with the other government agency, I just hope that that's the case.
All right, thank you. That amendment is carried. Back to you, Member Hyde.
Right, where was I? Amendment 6 is to delete conditions 18 and 19 related to flood management plan.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Howe. Member Hyde, do you wish to speak?
My understanding and reading of the plans is that this isn't within a floodplain, and I think that's referenced in the RAR as well. Clearly it's beyond the Charmax setback, and that was a requirement of the lease as well. The positioning of the development is not prone to flooding, so I think those flood management plans generally relate to being close to floodplain or within or close to the boundary with receding coastlines. So I don't believe these conditions are relevant to this development.
Do you remember how do you wish to speak?
I need to add that these sort of higher level coastal inundation and flooding issues are likely to be reviewed every 21 years when the lease is. So,
Members online, do you wish to speak for or against this amendment?
No.
No? All right, let's put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you, Member Hyde.
Thank you. I'll go to an easy one before a difficult one, I think. So Amendment 8 is related to new advice note related to 21.
you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll just outline the
Want to read
wording,
it?
shall I? So it's some amendment to the applicant's wording. So the advice note would read, in regard to condition 21, the driveway, internal vehicle manoeuvring areas and car parks to be constructed with trafficable crushed limestone consistent with the storm water management plan.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Member Howard, do you wish to speak to that?
Just because that is the undertaking in the plans acknowledged by the RAR, and therefore just providing an advice note should at some point in the future, if none of us be around to inform it. That's the intention for that condition as outlined by the advice note.
Thank you. Member Howard, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Do any of our members online wish to speak to that amendment to add the advice note?
So can I just confirm, was it,
I've got you on.
just to confirm, was that on 20
On 21.
or 21?
So it was just an advice note to explain condition 21.
Okay.
All right, let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you, Member Hyde.
Thank you. So this brings me, I think, to amendment 8.
Yep.
Difficult. I propose to delete condition 20, which requires sealing of the road of 100 metres.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Mounsey. You had seconded. Member Hyde, do you wish to speak more?
I think it's a difficult one. This is the deletion of this condition because I think it's a short stretch of road, track. It is used by other members of the community at the moment. We're unclear. We think Defence Force don't use it, but nonetheless, the thought that Defence may be wanting to close the beach is uncertain, and therefore the community at this point, and considering this application, are still using it. I think this is a very high-end development. It's not using it all that frequently, and I find that need and nexus quite hard to determine. So I think the responsibility does not rest purely with this applicant, and there's potentially the user groups who should contribute to this, and therefore I feel that the condition is not warranted.
Thank you. Councillor Mounsey, a seconder, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, I'd just like to inform that isn't a road that is maintained by the Shire, and it is a four-wheel drive only track, and it is clearly used for accessing the four-wheel drive part of the community, the beach. And as a high-end resort, having tourists come here, have an expectation that when they get here, they're going to be travelling on roads, obviously. As mentioned before, the DBCA 300-metre access track, that is self-service, that is maintained by DBCA. So it is a different part of the community that we don't have control of. Whereas this week, yes, we do have control of it, but it isn't something that is in our future expectations to upgrade that road, as it is a dirt track. And if that is to wash away, we will not take responsibility, I'd imagine, as a council or a shire to maintain that road for access to that building. So my concern is around, if there is flood situations, it does wash out and we can't get there because it's not a priority, there'll be no access and egress from that point. So I think we need to be very careful on how we don't come to a conclusion to fix that road.
Okay, Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak for or against the amendment to delete the condition?
I'd like to speak in favour.
Councillor Devereux.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate what Councillor Mounsey has said. The road actually right now is part of the dune system as well, so it's pretty much sand. So the risk of it being washed out is quite reasonable. And as what Councillor Mounsey has said, the high end level, it should be the responsibility of the developer to ensure that there's access to and from their development.
Thank you. Member Howe, did you wish to speak?
I need to say that from recent photos that we've received, the road has been at some point constructed by council. It's not a natural track. It is partly sort of managed. There's rocks and things that are used to block paths and things. I'm not saying it's a regularly maintained road, but it's obviously a recognised path from vehicles from the end of the bitumen to the beach. And that's its current use. And it obviously gets quite a lot of current use. So the addition of another dozen vehicles a day or whatever it is to the new resort is part of that current use. And I guess the request by the applicant to have this condition removed and us agreeing with it confirms that they're prepared to accept that there's maybe a risk to the degradation of that road, but in the same way they're going to manage their internal roads, that's their concern, I suppose. But it doesn't seem that they're the only users of this road by any means.
Thank you. Look, I'll speak briefly to this amendment. I think it's important to Member High talked about need and nexus, and when we make planning decisions that compel an applicant to either contribute money towards or to contribute infrastructure as a result of the proposal that they're putting forward, we need to be satisfied that there is sufficient need and nexus between that proposal and the upgrade of the infrastructure or the delivery of that infrastructure. I struggle with that one on this one because the road or the track or whatever we want to call it is already being used by others. That's why it exists. It's being used by the four-wheel drive community, as Councillor Mounsey outlined, and I think that's covered off in the RAR as well, and potentially others. So I think there's also commentary about a use of it by the golfing community as well. I think to say that the addition of 9 units in a high-end facility justifies the expense of upgrading a road that other people already use. I struggle from a pure planning decision-making perspective about justifying the need and nexus for that. In terms of the risk, as Member Howe raised, there is risk. Councillor Mounsey and Councillor Devereux have raised the fact that there is potential risk that this road gets washed away in its current form. And that risk is the operator's risk. That will affect their business. So the risk falls to them and not to the Shire in that regard. So because of that, I will support the amendment to delete the condition. I just can't justify the need and nexus for spending money on that upgrade when they're only one small user amongst a bunch of others. Back to you, Member Hyde, as mover.
Happy to go to the vote, presiding member.
Thank you. I will now, let's vote on the amendment to delete condition 20. All those in favour? Against? Carried 3-2. Thank you. Is there anything else you wish to add, Member Hyde?
I don't have any further amendments or further to say.
As seconder to the substantive, I think Member Howe, you were the seconder. Do you wish to speak to the substantive motion as amended?
No.
Elected members, do you wish to speak to the substantive motion before we move to the vote on it?
No.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Look, before I talk to the substantive motion, I'd like to move another 2 amendments, if I may. The first is to an amendment to condition 4 to require implementation of the environmental management plan not only prior to commencement of works, but also thereafter for the life of the project to the satisfaction of the Shire of Exmouth. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Yes. Thank you, Member Hyde. Look, the reason for that, this is just to tidy up. There are actions in the environmental management plan which require ongoing implementation. They're not all actions that need to be tackled just prior to commencement of works. So this is a tidy up to make sure that that environmental management plan gets adhered to for the life of the project. As seconded, do you wish to speak?
No.
No.
Concur.
Does any other member wish to speak to that amendment? No. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And then similarly, I'd like to move an en bloc amendment to conditions 12, 13, 16. We've deleted 18, have we not?
Yes.
So 12, 13 and 16 and 17. To add the words "and thereafter for the life of the project" at the end of those conditions. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mounsey. Again, currently these conditions specify implementation of these different plans prior to the use commencing, but they don't make it clear that some actions will require implementation on an ongoing basis. So this is just a tidy up. Councillor Mounsey has seconded. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
No, thank you.
No. Does any other member wish to speak for or against? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Speaking to the substantive now, I am very happy to support the application. It's a very high quality design and a great land use for the location, and it seems it will be delivered sensitively and as a bit of a benchmark for sustainable tourist development. I'm of the view that the unit to be set aside for employees is not a typical workforce accommodation as we currently know it. It's more of a service worker type function, and that's the basis upon which we're approving it. It's an incidental and integral part of the development. I'm happy to see it included. Don't propose to repeat what else has been said by others, so I will close on that basis. Member Hyde, as mover of the substantive, do you wish to close?
I'm just continuing to be happy to support as we have amended. Thank you.
Great. Let's vote on the substantive now to approve the development as amended. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving to item 4, Form 2 DAP applications for Exmouth. There are none. Section 31 SAT reconsiderations, also none. With that, I thank our councillors Gary Mounsey and Christy Devereaux for your participation today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
For anyone watching online, we're not adjourning, but we're just changing over and allowing new elected members to join the meeting. So there'll be a slight pause in the proceedings. All right, welcome back everybody for part D of our agenda relating to the Shire of Capel. For this part of the agenda, I welcome Councillor Martin Boyes and Councillor Sebastian Sciano, our local government DAP members for the Shire of Capel, to the panel. For those new to the meeting for this part, I remind everyone that the meeting is being run in accordance with our DAP standing orders, and panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Item 1, declaration of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part D of the agenda and Part D related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all information? Unanimous, thank you. Disclosures of interest. Could I check with our local government members whether this application has been before you at a briefing or a council briefing?
Yes, at a council meeting. Seb, do you want to respond to that? You may have more knowledge than me.
No, this hasn't been presented to an ordinary council meeting. Council is aware of its existence informally in a briefing, but it hasn't been briefed on the matter.
Okay, thank you. Look, just to, in case people are watching online and just to tidy up this for the purpose of the minutes, we do have a standing declaration that if agenda items have been considered at a council meeting or have come to the elected members' attention via briefing or other means, they acknowledge that they have participated in that, which they've just done. And they also acknowledge that they're not bound by any previous decisions or resolutions of the local government, and that they exercise independent judgment in relation to the matters before them. The briefing they would have received aligns with the information that is presented in the responsible authority report. So I am happy that there is nothing that would prevent these councillors from participating or voting in relation to this application today. Other members, do we have any other disclosures that anyone would like to make? No? All right, let's move on then to item 3, our Form 1 DAP application for Capel today, lot 28. Capel Drive, lot 12 Forest Road, lot 165 Capel Drive. Proposed short stay accommodation, over 55 lifestyle village and mixed use development. DAP number 25/03018. We have 2 presenters on this item today. First is Kim Dopel from Dopel Marsh Architects, and then we have Janine Marsh from Dopel Marsh Architects presenters. I remind you that in accordance with your with our standing orders, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes. What I propose to do is allow you each your 3 minutes before we open to questions of you as a team. We have read everything you've provided to us. I encourage you to stick to the most salient points you want to get across in a very short 3 minutes, and we'll be able to ask you questions after. So, Kim, are you going first? All right, your 3 minutes starts when you're ready.
Morning, Chair and panel members and all present. There was only one. First of all, I'd like to say that we work very collaboratively with the Shire of Capel, and between all of us, we believe we've come up with a good outcome, which is generally supported by the community. There's only one thing that I wish to speak on, and that was condition number 29, and I'll be brief on this. It's in regard to the 7,029 square metres regional open space, and the condition is suggesting that that land be ceded to the government at no cost. Historically, that land forms part of the original hotel and stables going back to 1898. Secondly, the land is part of the total land, which is part of the valuation of the property. So at the moment, it's on the title. Some owners, previous owners ago, were paid a small amount of money to have an easement and for it to be designated as regional open space, not to have any development on it, because it is in a floodway. So that's all I was going to say, that for setback reasons and also for fire source under the bush fire regulation management plan that we have, the if it goes out of the ownership of the owners, there's no guarantee that that would be maintained in accordance with. So we believe it's unrealistic to take the land at this point in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. Janine, your 3 minutes starts when you are ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, panel members and all. I would like to say that this application, has been a significant development for Capel. We've been mindful of its scale and impact, and we appreciate the support from the local community and also from the Capel officers have made a collaborative approach in producing a high quality outcome. There have been some significant constraints for the master planning, which we've outlined, which have been state agency requirements, flood and embankment management, bushfire zones, high tension power lines, ATCO gas easements, heritage retentions, transport interface and endangered fauna, just to list a few. So it's been a challenging site. The key design elements of the development is a 3-storey mixed-use building on Forest Road, which is RCO's compliance, and it supports Capel's growth by providing housing diversity and ancillary services. There's short stay accommodation, which is a hotel-style development with 4 glass frontages, uninterrupted river views and extensive communal facilities with a unique visitor experience. The historic stables have retained and been used for alfresco and communal areas, and the over 55 housing provides diversity of dwelling types, ageing in place with landscape connections, pedestrian networks and shared facilities which promote interaction and long-term livability. And the flood and embankment risks, the buildings are located well above the 100-year flood line on piles, avoiding excavation, and geotechnical studies have shown that we've put it in a safe location. I particularly like to speak on DA condition 16. Late in the assessment, Main Roads requested changes to the historic tavern crossover, which has been there for over 100 years, and the surrounding external roads which have existed for decades. There are pre-existing safety conditions, including vehicle speeds around Capel Drive, not caused by this development's only minor increase in traffic as confirmed by traffic engineering advice. Discussions have sort of shown that whether we had 1 new car bay or 100 car bays, the DA is being really used to solve these external issues. We acknowledge the safety concerns, but our civil engineers advise that relocating the crossover south provides minimum improvement to the sightlines with only a slightly longer queuing length. The proposed external works represent a Rolls-Royce solution, placing full financial responsibility on our client, despite multiple pre-existing infrastructure issues. For comparison, the petrol station opposite contains a significantly wide crossover with multiple car bays entering into the intersection. The slip road in front of the tavern is an historical remnant from when Forest Road was the primary southbound route, resulting in vehicles accelerating around the Capel Drive into Capel. A pre-existing traffic condition as it is. For safety reasons, we recommended closing the tavern's secondary crossover into the slip road to reduce conflict onto Capel Drive. In good faith, our client has agreed to the relocation of the primary crossover to collaborate with the main roads. Responsibility for the broader external infrastructure remains with the relevant authorities, so the full financial burden should not rest with our client for rectifying long-standing external issues to the site. We respectfully request the DA condition reflects this. Overall, the development represents good housing, jobs, tourism and community benefits. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. We will now move to questions of the presenters. I might start with our member online. Councillor Sciano, do you have questions?
Yes, thank you. And it is somewhat in reference to the comments in regards to condition 29 in regards to the regional open space. Given that's what's currently proposed, can the applicant advise what level of public access would be maintained to the riverfront through the development?
As it's designated as regional open space and it's within the floodplain, there are concerns and issues during the winter months. Being regional open space, access can be got to it from under the bridge to the west of the site. It's very dangerous at the corner where the tavern is and the bridge at the moment. I mean, there's a very steep angle there, but you can access both sides of the river from the bridge to the west. On the eastern side, there's a railway bridge, and there's no access there. It's a remnant of the railway line that used to go down to Busselton. That is more challenging, but I mean, the river is accessible by, you know, boat, canoe, swimming, or walking, so that the site is available for public access. I'm not sure that any has in recent times. Currently, there's 4 horses that are being housed there that were about to be put down, and the chap got the horses and got permission from the tavern manager to graze them there. And that's, as far as I know, that's about the only access or use of the land at the moment.
Further questions, councillor?
Yeah, additional questions. So my understanding, please correct me if I am incorrect. So there's a couple of stairways within the short stay accommodation area, which just simply lead into what is the regional public open space or proposed regional public open space. Am I correct in understanding that those are private stairways and they'll be behind a secured fence and gate, so they won't provide public access to the regional open space?
That's correct. There is a safety issue about the development, so one needs to, with the river being there, we believe that there will be a fence, a low fence put along just to exclude that direct access, but there may be gates which will allow access to the space. But it's mainly from the site itself. I mean, in the finished and completed population of the site and the development, there'll be quite a lot of people who on the site who would, if they wished, make access to that space.
So, sorry.
It's only a walking type of situation. There would be no structures. If you put pathways in, for instance, that will undermine the angle of the bank and could create a slipping situation, which has also been highlighted, and we've addressed that with geotechnical advice. So it's really a low key sort of grassed area. It's quite pleasant because there's quite a lot of trees and that around there, but you can't actually access the site from the bridge to the west because the access is very dangerous, and to the other end you can't access it because of the railway bridge. In fact, that land's all fenced off and there's no access.
So probably one last question in that line of questioning then is, if the RDAP was to remove that condition, it to be ceded to the Crown for regional open space, would it be fair to assume that the applicant would be satisfactory with the original proposal, which was the requirement or condition for a foreshore management plan, which was DWER's original suggestion?
Well, the thing is that we're not touching that land. The only thing that's going to happen with that land from a maintenance point of view is to make sure that there's no fire issues. And that was why there was no need for the regional open or the management plan, because nothing is actually physically happening in that area in terms of touching waterways, in terms of touching any fauna or flora that's in that space, except for making sure that it's a fire break and it's well maintained. So that was the reason why it wasn't needed. It wasn't because it was who owned it. It was actually because there was nothing happening to it.
Further to that, we had extensive discussions with all the government departments, and we actually have a letter, an official letter saying that a foreshore management plan was not required from, and that was provided by the Department of Planning. You know, they said that they wouldn't require that to be done as part of this application. They said if in the future the land was owned by the government, the management would be handed over to the Shire of Capel, and they would have to maintain and manage it. Now, that is an additional expense to the Shire of Capel that would have to be budgeted, and it would also have to be done, you know, constantly through the year, which is part of the plan, because under our bushfire management plan, the the area has to be maintained on a constant basis so that, dead leaves or branches or weeds and things don't get hold of the area and become another fire hazard. So that's got to be constantly kept at bay.
Just also to clarify, at the meeting that we had at the council just recently, when it was discussed that we didn't need to have the foreshore management plan, at that time the ownership was not discussed as moving out of the client's hands. So it was agreed that it was not needed when it was still in the ownership of the client.
Apologies, that's just raised another question for me. So would the applicant then acknowledge the fact that it's perhaps not appropriate that the plans include stairways essentially to this area of regional open space that, as I've just been advised, is not going to be maintained to any level other than the requirements under bushfire compliance? If there's no plans to manage that site in a recreational purpose, then would it not be appropriate to remove or going to be considered that it's not appropriate that there would be pathways and stairways, multiple of such, that lead to that site but nowhere further?
The stairs actually lead down to the bottom level of the accommodation, and that's really for people not to have to use the lift. The stairs actually take them down to the bottom level of the accommodation. That's the primary reason for the stairs. Yep. But the main reason that the regional open space is the question is that all our setbacks and all our area calculations are based on that area being part of the site. And the other reason that Kim did highlight was that under evaluation purpose, it's an extreme amount of land that would be removed away, which then takes the viability of getting funding with less land in the calculation. So it was quite a surprise to see that added in at the last moment. We were not aware of it's going to be a condition. And they're the main reasons behind. It's not about really controlling the regional open space for the, let's say, for the applicant, sorry, for the owner to have. It's more because of, I suppose, the technical sides that are related to the ownership of that land in terms of planning, setback requirements, etc. And also, as I said, the actual value of the land in terms of the valuation for the property to stand up, I suppose, to be able to be financed. So
I'll just add, there's no physical access from the site into the regional open space, which is governed by an easement over the property. So as Janine mentioned, the stairs and pathways are only to the accommodation. They do not extend into or part of the regional open space. So there's no access provided in the application into that regional open space. The lifts, stairways and pathways only to access the short stay accommodation.
Thank you. Councillor Schiano, any further questions from you?
Well, sorry, when I asked the question regarding the low secure fence, that was in regards to the entry and exit points of the pedestrian entry and exit points of the short stay accommodation area itself. And there was a response regarding some fences. Is it my understanding, am I correct in understanding that where that proposed area of the site boundary is at the, the flood line, that will also include a low fence to prevent guests from wandering from the bottom of the stairs basically to the riverbank?
Correct. If there's any access to the public open space, it will be via a swimming pool client gate with a self-closing and lock. But that the site area is quite a distance. I'm not sure if you've got copies of the plan, but if you're able to look at plan DA 100A, the site plan definitely shows where the boundary is, which is a red line, and at some distance, then there's between the red line, which is the boundary of the easement, and the short-term accommodation, there's a blue line, which is the flood line. So it's there is space in front of the short stay accommodation without nearing the boundary of the easement. So it's not as if the easement is right on the edge of the short stay. There is a space between them, but we would need to see probably we'll discuss it further with the Shire of Capel. It's from a safety point of view, because it is, if it's completely open, which it is at the moment, but access to the site is controlled by the users and by the current management. And I don't know what the government's position is about protecting waterways from public access, be it children unsupervised or whatever. So that's another aspect of it. The main concern of keeping it as part of the site is historically it's always been part of it, and they used to graze horses there, because originally they had to have, when the mail coach came down, they had to have a team of horses which were available to hitch up the following morning, and they used to graze in that area. But it's mainly the area of the land contained as part of the overall, from a valuation point of view, but also from the management under the bushfire regulations, and that's incorporated in.
So we've already covered that off to some degree. I'm just mindful of time here. We've already covered that off a couple of times. Councillor Sciano, does that answer your question, or do you have further questions?
No, I've got no additional questions.
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, other members in the room, any questions of the applicant?
Thank
Member Hyde.
you. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to be clear around that condition 16 that you talked to. I understand what you're saying at the moment, that your concern perhaps is that it's more extensive than just the relocation of the crossover. But what is your proposed alternate to the way that condition 16 is worded at the moment?
So the client has agreed to move the crossover further down. It's just moving it slightly. And as I said, the impact of that is minimal, but they've done it in good faith. There's a slip road outside, and there's a island, and we've engaged an engineer to speak directly with Main Roads, and his words are they're asking for a Rolls-Royce solution of like changing and amending this slip road island part. Now, we don't know how expensive it's going to be, but we just feel it's unfair that our client has to be responsible for paying all of that adjustment to that area when it's been an existing problem for a long time. If we hadn't put the DA in at all, it would have just stayed there as what they consider a bit of an unsafe intersection area. And so we've done our part, which we believe was by closing that second section that came, there was two crossovers that came into that area. We've closed one down, we've moved the crossover over, but we just don't feel like our client should have to bear the cost of fixing all that outside area.
I understand that, but I'm looking at your addendum to the planning report, and you said that you've relocated that crossover towards lot 12.
Yes.
But then you go on to say adjustments to the external slip plane, including curbing and alignment modifications to be developed in the design development stage, but can be treated under a condition of the DA. So are you saying that condition 16 ought to relate to the relocation of that crossover towards lot 12 and the design of adjustments to the slip plane?
I think the design of the adjustments shouldn't really be borne by our client.
Okay, but that's what it says in your addendum.
Yes, it was only just if we do something minor, but not the full cost of it.
So in other words, are you saying that the drawings that you submitted show the relocation of the crossover towards lot 12?
Yes.
And that's it?
Yes.
So are you saying that condition 16 is required at all, or are you proposing some rewording of it?
Well, I think what we submitted did show a bit of the outside as well, because that was what the engineer discussed with the Main Road. So I guess what we're trying to say is we don't believe that outside section should be the cost of our client.
That's fine, and you've mentioned that a couple of times now, but Member Hyde is asking currently got a condition 16 that relates to the works required to that intersection. You're asking for it to be deleted, but you're proposing something that's not then covered by a condition. It's sitting out on the side here and there's no way to enforce it. So is there specific wording that you are suggesting, given you're suggesting deletion of condition 16, are you suggesting alternate wording to lock in what you are saying you are prepared to do?
Yes, well, I guess relocate the crossover and.
If I may.
Yeah, sorry.
If I may, as I read it, the condition 16 is acceptable without any change of wording because it refers to the crossover.
Yes.
When we had detailed discussions with Main Roads on the whole matter of the crossover, I put forward a suggestion that if the giveaway sign to the slip road was changed to a stop sign, that would overcome all their concerns. They then said, oh no, we can't possibly do that.
Sorry, Kim, are you comfortable with the wording of condition 16 as it is at the moment? Thank you.
All right, because you're satisfied that'll cover off the different idea that you have.
It's to the specification of main roads, but that's not.
The work required for the relocation of the crossover, we're happy with. My understanding is that we can do that without affecting any of the other intersection.
No, that's incorrect because it talks about the specification of the main roads and the
But
main roads.
it's reference to the crossover.
Where does it say that?
Here.
Okay.
So can I just check with you?
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Specification of main roads at the moment is saying they want the Rolls Royce.
Yes.
You're suggesting, what I'm hearing there is if you delete those words is to be prepared to the specification of main roads, then that will shift the focus from the solution they found, because the Shire will still engage with them about the ultimate design. So you're saying if you delete the wording to the specification of main roads, then that should be enough to allow your alternate to be discussed with the Shire at a point. Is that what you're saying?
I believe so.
Okay. Grand.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Member Height. Any other question?
A couple of things. The plan requires a removal of about 113 trees. Have you done a fauna assessment?
Yes, we have.
So you're comfortable as part of your EMP that you're not going to be removing what might be seen as habitat for endangered species?
So we have had a zoologist engaged and there was only two, and at the next stage they will have spotters and they will relocate if there is anything there. The zoologist stayed overnight, I believe, and did an assessment. So we are aware of it and we have a program for it. And I believe there's also a requirement to have a management report as well for the next stage.
Most of the trees that we're proposing are the arborists, and some of them have got white infestations, some of them are dead, some have got dangerous limbs and things like that. The intention from day one was to keep as many trees as possible, which we have.
Look, there's a bit of detail on that. The second question was, it's as proposed all on the one lot, lot 28, correct?
No, at the moment, it's lot 28 is co-joined with lot 165.
Okay.
So the intention is to have it, lot 12 is a separate lot all on its own. The intention is to amalgamate it into one and then re-subdivide it so that the tavern and the short stay is on one lot, and the over 55 village is on a separate lot.
Right. So, so at the moment, the regional open space is currently on private land and has not been acquired, and the state government is not opposed to in that manner.
No.
Okay.
That is formed by an easement over that land, which is on the title.
You may be aware that that might be an issue, that when you come to amalgamate the land, future tenure of that land may be covered at that point as opposed to now with regard to regional open space.
Would be correct, but we would not be opposing the amalgamation until the development was completed.
And the last question, which is probably also one for the council, but I question you. This approval suggests a 2-year approval. Are you happy with that?
No, we were going to ask for further if that was possible.
Thank you.
We all realise that the whole landscape has changed, not so much getting approval, but it's getting construction done. We're looking at alternative solutions to have the majority of the buildings built, pre-built, but because the availability of tradesmen is terrible in Perth, it's almost non-available in the country. So,
and being such a large project will be staged, so we would be very appreciative if it could be changed to 4 years or later. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions, but they have been answered. We will now move on to questions of our local government. I believe we have Louise Hughes, Matt Young, and Steele Alexander with us today from the Shire of Capel. Matt, I think I can see you on screen. Hi. All right, that's great. I'm going to give you the opportunity. I don't want you to reiterate what's in the RA or summarise the application because we're across that, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to anything you wish that has been raised in the deputations today. Alternatively, we can just move to questions because I think we have some questions of you.
Thank you.
Very big echo.
Sorry, just need to fix the audio. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you. Now we can't hear you at all. We can't hear you, Matt. We heard you very briefly, but now we've lost you. No. Whatever you did there for that split second worked. Now we can't hear you.
The green line there, is that locked on us?
That's us.
Oh, he's frozen, yeah.
Bottom. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm actually operating, I'm just under Louisa's connection. My apologies for that. So look, a couple of issues have been raised. The first one, I suppose, and look, safe to say that from the officer's assessment of the proposal, we think it's a high quality, transformative proposal for Capel town, and are supportive of that. But so rather than sort of go through any sort of details, I'll just talk about the issues that have been raised in respect to initially first the foreshore, and in fact council had considered a proposal of some adjoining foreshore just on the western side of the bridge at its ordinary council meeting on the 25th of February this year, where in fact we were looking to accept regional open space owned by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage for the other sections of the Capel River, and council had resolved that it was supportive of that, and that its position is that we would not only accept that land, but would open it up for the Commission to investigate the transference of that land to the Shire's control in order to provide for long-term maintenance of that foreshore area. Obviously, from a bushfire perspective, and it was an issue that was raised by the applicant around the maintenance of that land, that we would then be able to access the mitigation funding that's available for local governments around land that we have control over. So we certainly feel that we could, that in terms of the maintenance of that land, that we could both maintain the bushfire requirements and the separation of the vegetation on that site to the proposal, and in the long term maintain that land. The council also has separate other strategies that deal with proposals to extend footpaths to represent Aboriginal heritage matters and the like in and around those foreshore areas, which we know and appreciate are part of the traditional owners' heritage listed and key areas for them as well. So in that respect, I suppose I'd probably just draw members' attention to livable neighbourhoods, which the principle of regional open space and foreshore reserves is that at that sort of point of sort of subdivision development, that regional open space is given up free of cost. And look, from the Shire's perspective around this advice, this had been, and I was very clear around the very first meetings that we had with the proponents around the regional open space, that this foreshore area, there was an expectation for it to be given up. And certainly those discussions and the condition that relates to that is consistent with the advice that we have provided at that time. If the land wasn't to be given up, then certainly we would be expecting a foreshore management plan to be prepared, landscape plans produced over the balance of that land, which at the moment there was no requirement for that, because the expectation was that land was then going to be transferred through to the Shire as part of the regional open space extent through there. So certainly in support of the condition, our position is that we feel that condition 29 is both consistent with orderly and proper planning. It's consistent with the Shire's existing strategies for development of that foreshore reserve in terms of public access, trails and those sorts of things, and that we would be in a position to be able to maintain that land and the rest of that foreshore into the future. Turning then, I suppose, to the question around access to Forest Road, the current condition, and to be clear, that both the intersection of Capel Drive, which was the old route through to the southwest, used to extend through Capel. So Capel Drive, which is to the north of the property, and Forest Road, which extends along the western boundary of the property, is a primary regional road under the Greater Bunbury Region Scheme. As a primary regional road, Main Roads has responsibility for access onto those roads, and so therefore the discussion around the safe turning movement into and out of the proposal onto Forest Road is an issue that had been raised by Main Roads as being unsafe in the original location of access. There have been discussions and some general agreement between the Shire, the applicant, and Main Roads, primarily Main Roads, around the alternative solution that has been provided for. But very clearly, It's integral to the development, access for all of the northern commercial parts, which is both the existing tavern operation and the short-term accommodation, rely on that Forest Road access as the means of accessing those components and the car parks that relate. And the development itself, if I turn back into the current road environment, the current road environment operates well. It's acknowledged that the existing tavern on the site has been there for a very long period of time, probably predates and access relating to those to the existing car park predates the changes in terms of the current road environment. But this is an opportunity, obviously, to make this safe. The main roads certainly have got no operational plans to do any works in Capel Drive, and I'm concerned around the comments made that that the obligations of this $30 million development is only around providing for the crossover. Very clearly, the aspects of the road geometry relating to the intersection and the alignments along Forest Road do need to be improved as part of this development. It's the only activity that requires those changes to be made, and so therefore our view is that there's both a nexus and need for what is described in condition 17 to not only deal with the crossover but also the intersection access and the line work, curb work, or other sort of requirements ultimately that will relate to that to be to the satisfaction of Shire, but in consult with Main Roads, who the agency involved or have responsibility over those two roads. So look, I'm open to questions, but I'd restrict, I suppose, my comments just to those at this point in time.
That's great. Thank you for that. I am going to ask whether or not any members have questions of the Shire staff. Councillor Sciano, do you have questions of the staff?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce?
No, thank you.
Other members in the room, questions of the Shire staff? Yep.
Thank you. Is lot amalgamation required prior to occupation then?
Look, not that I'm aware of. There's no necessity around the amalgamation of the sites to facilitate this. There is a boundary between if there was to be development over lot 12, I think they have referred to that, which is the small parcel of land fronting Forest Road. The design as it currently stands facilitates, the development doesn't extend over the lot boundaries, wouldn't necessarily extend to require amalgamation at this point in time. But there would need to be, if there was a potential change in ownership, there would possibly need to be easements or other elements applied. And so because there is no subdivision at this point in time, there's no requirement for subdivision or amalgamation resulting from the development. This is the opportunity to transfer that regional open space.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're all looking at the same plans. It looks to us like the development does go over 2 lots here.
Over 165.
Yeah, over 165. The question of ceding of land and so forth is normally a factor of subdivision, particularly at the point of amalgamation, should that be required. And conditions of subdivision quite often require all of those sort of management plans and access arrangements and so forth that you're suggesting. So I'm just wondering, does condition whatever it is, 29, 31, which one is it?
29.
29 actually leapfrog a process that would normally be covered by subdivision? What's your view on that?
Look, again, livable neighbourhoods in terms of the way it's prepared refers to a subdivision process, subdivision amalgamation process. It's just unclear as to whether that will ever be required as part of this development. Our concern, I suppose, if we were to not include the regional open space, then we would need to revisit questions around what happens with that regional open space in the interim until either the commission acquire the land or it's transferred as part of a land rationalisation.
Okay, second question in your condition list. Conditions 25, 26 and 27, which refer to arrangements being made with various statutory bodies, Western Power and Water Corporation. What role does the Shire play in that? Would they not normally be advice notes, or is there a matter that requires the Shire's involvement which places them as a condition of development?
Look, in terms of land capability, there's been no assessment of the proposal accommodating any effluent on site. We would be happy for or prepared for those conditions to be moved as advisory notes, but certainly the expectation is that the development itself would be connected to those services.
Member Howe?
Matt, condition 30 refers to developer infrastructure provisions and contributions. What specifically would relate to this land that, say, wouldn't be covered by things like road upgrades or intersection upgrades and things?
Yes, thank you for that inquiry. So under the Shire's local planning scheme number 8, there is a development contribution plan requirement that relates to residential development within Capel. There's another one that relates to a separate development contribution for Dalyella. And under the terms of that, there is a fee that is required under the scheme for residential lots. So those works then relate to not road improvements or other general infrastructure improvements, but for community infrastructure works. And the scheme then specifies what those works are. And so this is a standard requirement for all forms of residential development in the Shire.
And back on condition 29, was this referred to DPLH, this application? Given it sits over a regional reserve?
Yes.
Did they recommend condition 29?
I don't think so. This is
given that essentially asking them to cede land to the state government, they didn't ask for it.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thanks.
Matt, I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Is there a specific reason you've included a validity period of only 2 years?
Look, it was just a standard period that we've applied. We would not be opposed for that being extended to 4 years as requested. It is for commencement, substantial commencement for that, but we would not be opposed to a longer period being set.
Thank you. And then looking at condition 6, condition 6D, to me, when I read that condition, seems a little out of place or unnecessary. So condition 6 deals with a waste management plan. And then you've got comply with the approved operational and waste management plans and amendments to the satisfaction, and then you've got below that, you need to implement it and adhere to it. Is that superfluous, that point D?
Yes, look, I would agree with the member that 6D is covered off by the paragraph that follows through, so it could be removed.
Okay, and then looking at condition 15, which relates to the need for a crossover permit, is that not better suited as an advice note?
Yes, in terms of the crossover to Row Road, that can form part of a advisory note. Yes.
Sure, thank you. Then condition 17 requires a traffic management plan for construction phase, but that seems to be unnecessary because it's already a subpoint covered under condition 7, which requires preparation and implementation of a construction management plan. What are your thoughts on that? Is it duplication?
Look, the issue around the traffic management is around works in those public roads that would require a specific traffic management plan to be produced. So the management of traffic in that space.
Condition 7 asks for a construction management plan, and
Yep.
as part of that, it says the plan needs to address the following, and point C is traffic management. So to me, requiring a separate
Yes.
traffic management
Yeah,
plan
look,
is
I can see your point there. So look, yeah, if it's covered through condition 7, which both deals with the approval processes and the implementation of that, then we would be happy for that to be the subsequent condition to be removed.
Okay. And then lastly, you've covered it off in the RA, and I note the feedback that you received from the Southwest Design Review Panel, and the fact that some changes were made in response to that. But I wouldn't mind a brief comment from you on how you feel the proposal addresses the design principles of State Planning Policy 7. Are you happy that it aligns with those?
You look certainly, both I suppose as a responsive to the comments that were made by members of the Southwest Design Review Panel when it was taken back in May last year. We certainly feel that the applicant has considered and responded to all of the elements of the state planning policy relating to design. In terms of both the form and materiality of what had been proposed, I think there's been a suitable response in all elements that have been raised by the panel. There's certainly no areas of objection that we can identify. Safe to say that the strong 4-story element on Forest Road is a component which is outside of the current vernacular along that street. But we do note that the design quality of that element is of a high quality, and again, we're supportive of that.
Thank you. That's my questions. I think unless there are any further questions of the Shire staff, we're going to move to the report now. And in front of us, we have a report that recommends approval of the proposal subject to a number of conditions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation in the report? Thank you, Councillor Stiano. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Boyes. Councillor Stiano, as the mover, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. And I've appreciated the discussion around and questioning throughout this so far. Look, essentially and fundamentally, I'm satisfied that the proposal before us is obviously a permissible use within our local planning scheme. And I actually find it quite refreshing the way that the applicant has designed the different aspects of this proposal or development in accordance with the various land uses that do cover the entirety of the site. Look, I am also happy and acknowledge as well that there are some minor inconsistencies, and I think the report from the design review panel addresses those quite well, but none in which I think are of such concern that there would be any ground to refuse approval in this case. And I agree with the responsible authority reports and recommendation on that matter for approval as well. I do hold concerns, and I have no doubt that there will probably be some discussion throughout this around the management of that regional public open space or regional open space and foreshore component of the development. I'm sure we'll probably discuss that in a little more detail. I think essentially I'm very happy with the proposal that's been recommended by the Shire or recommended by the administration on that front. And the matter of the fact that there is an integrated growth plan, which is significantly into development, and some of that has already been touched on by the officer in regards to future strategic plan and vision for that foreshore and river, particularly around the interpretation of Indigenous culture and interpretive trails as well. And of course, the asset value that has to the community, I think should be a consideration. And also the effective management of such a reserve is important as well. And so whoever that is determined to be seated with or invested in, there needs to be suitable management for that. And I think that the current arrangement and the recommendation by the administration is satisfactory to that matter. So at this stage, I'm very happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Our seconder, Councillor Boyce.
Yes, I echo the comments there of Councillor Shano, and do appreciate the amount of work that's gone in, not only from the Shire's point of view, but from the applicants and that. So I'm quite comfortable with what we've done, and listen to everything that was said this morning. It's quite educational, and that's I'm happy to support it as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak to the substantive motion?
Again, willing to support. I think it's a very imaginative development. It seems to tick a lot of boxes, and I'm sure it would be a great asset to the town once it's developed. There's a few teething edges around the edges of it. I would like to support it subject to the amendment of one or two conditions.
Would you like to move them individually, please?
Firstly, to delete condition 29.
And that deals with requiring the regional open space to be designated as foreshore reserve. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Hyde. Do you wish to speak, Member Howe?
Much has sort of been said and alluded to it. I don't think this is the time in the process or the forum to do it. My understanding of the process with regard to seeding of regional open space generally happens at either subdivision or certainly as involvement with the state government, who then own the land. For it not to be raised in more detail also in the RAR and then to sort of appear as a condition, it's quite a substantial condition to impose on a developer. And as there's a number of reasons why that might be inappropriate at this time. It may well form part of discussions as part of any subsequent amalgamation or subdivision of the land to suit new tenure, or as part of any acquisition that the state government may be involved. But I don't believe that this is the right juncture or timing to do this. And it doesn't seem to be a clear mechanism for its ongoing management in regard to its seeding. So I don't think it's the right time to do it.
Hyde, do you wish to say?
I concur that the condition is premature. These matters are normally resolved through subdivision or amalgamation of lots. Also, I think it would have been raised by the department at the point of referral. And I think that the development at the moment is not impacting that reserve. It's set back. The easement in place precludes development upon it, and this development doesn't encroach upon the easement. So I don't believe at this point that foreshore or easement are under threat by virtue of this development. So I don't believe we need to step in and suggest that this is ceded. I think at the moment the foreshore and this development can be seen as compatible matters, and the issue of ceding of land is something for a future process.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? Councillor Ciano.
Yeah, thank you. I'll unsurprisingly speak against the amendment. And first and foremost, I think the absence of such recommendation or condition, should I say, I think it's vital that it be, if it was successful, that it needs to be covered through a foreshore management plan. And my line of questioning earlier today is essentially around, well, the application seeks to use the amenity and facility provided within that area that is currently within the allotted area, and talking about such things as those stairways that do lead down to essentially nothing. Within the drawings and the designs from, and I'm looking at, I think it was DA 134 or similar or close to that. This essentially does lead down into that area. And I do understand that that particular space that it does essentially lead down into is currently unmanaged. It's overgrown and unmanaged bushland essentially. And someone needs to be responsible for the management and impact along the foreshore and within that bushland along there as well. I think that this is exactly right. Well, this is certainly the right time to have that discussion, given that it has some sort of long-term and strategic benefit or interference with the vision for that foreshore. So without such a condition around ceding that land, then it's absolutely necessary that there is a foreshore management plan, and that should be a condition. And I respect that the one department that did provide comment over the management of the foreshore was DWER, and I respect that they did state that there would be no need for such a management plan, given that the revisions had removed any infrastructure that was proposed within that regional area or regional open space, such as the viewing platform and other facilities. But there's absolutely no doubt from the responses earlier today and from the design itself that this application sets to benefit from the amenity and lifestyle or environment that is the riverbank. And so it should be absolutely necessary that there's a foreshore management plan in its place. I still think that it's ideal that the land be ceded to the local government in the case that then it can be incorporated into planning. And that's value-adding planning as well. The reality of having the integrated growth plan along within the Shires of the Capel town site is only, I think, an outstanding opportunity for the applicant, and I think complements the development. So, look, I don't support the removal of this condition.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other one you wish to speak?
I don't need to speak. I've listened to what Councillor has said, and that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I will briefly speak, and I will speak to acknowledge some of what Councillor Ciano has said, in that, and I'm paraphrasing using my own words now. I think if there is a plan for the upgrade of that foreshore in the future, that is a positive thing. And by simply excluding this part of the foreshore from that plan, in one way or another, by not requiring a foreshore management plan, or by simply keeping it within the control of a developer, could be a problem down the track. In saying that, however, I do agree with Member Howe that a development application like this, in my view, is not the appropriate mechanism to require the ceding of land. It appears to me that there will need to be an amalgamation of land that occurs over this property at some point in the future. And that would be the appropriate mechanism for the state to put a condition on that amalgamation or subdivision approval to require the ceding of land. I just don't think that this development application is the right tool or the mechanism to do that. So I will support the deletion of condition 29, mainly for that reason. I don't think a DA is the appropriate, or this type of DA is the appropriate mechanism to require the ceding of land. Member Howe, as mover, do you wish to close?
Other than say, I acknowledge your concerns also, Councillor Sciano, but I will point you to condition 12 that says that environmental management plan addressing flora, fauna and the waterway is to be prepared. So I think, and there's a number of other operational management plans and site plans that need to be prepared that I think perhaps cover off some of those concerns in the short term, whilst the larger picture of the future ownership of the reserve is arranged through other mechanisms, and that those conditions need to be to the satisfaction of the Shire. So I think that there is going to be the opportunity for better dialogue with regard to that as it stands.
Thank you. We will now vote on the amendment to delete condition 29. All those in favour? Against? That is carried 3-2. Back to you, Member Howe. You wish to move a further amendment?
I will, and in relation to that, I'll suggest the insertion of a new condition. I'm not sure what number will be. 32, given the deleted one. Regarding the amalgamation of the land, because from the best I can see, development does cross the boundaries of lots 28, 12 and 165. I think the common commission amalgamation definition, something like the existing lots.
Let's just get a seconder for that. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Hyde. Back to you, Member Howe.
Something along the lines of the existing lots 28, 12 and 165 are to be amalgamated into a single lot on a certificate of title to the satisfaction of the West Australian Planning Commission.
Prior to occupation?
Prior to occupation, yeah.
You have so that you're happy with that wording?
Yes.
Yep. Do you wish to speak further to your reasons for that amendment?
No, I think it's just a standard requirement.
Member Hyde, do you wish to speak to it?
Well, I think when you've got a land use that traverses a number of lots, it's appropriate to do so, and particularly in this location, because there's amenities being provided to strata and to other lessees at some point in the future. So I think some clarity around titling will be required.
Thank you. Look, very briefly, I will support the addition of this new condition 2 for the reasons raised by the other two members next to me, but also it creates the mechanism, the appropriate mechanism for careful consideration of ceding of that foreshore reserve, whether it needs to be ceded or not. That is the appropriate pathway for that to be carefully considered and referred to the relevant agency. So that is just more appropriate. So I will support it on that basis. Does any other member wish to speak for or against the inclusion of that new condition? No? All right, do you wish to close?
Nothing further to say.
All right, let's vote on that. All those in favour? Vote unanimously. Back to you, Member Howe. Do you wish to speak further?
One further amendment to condition 1. Just this application can be valid for a period of 4 years from the date of approval.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Do you wish to speak to that?
I think that's with standard approval timeframe this day and age.
It is our default approval period in the regs, so consistent with that.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak for or against that amendment? No. Councillor Sciano?
Yeah, just briefly against, and just to reiterate the comments of the director, 2 years is our standard in the Shire of Capel. And I think that there's been some allusion to the fact that within that 2-year period, the development has to be completed. It only needs to be substantially commenced. I'm not aware of many examples, even in recent history or in my 10 years, where that hasn't been achieved by a developer or has been a point of issue. And so I am just concerned around the precedent it sets in regards to the standard practice and precedents that we have in the Shire of Capel for a 2-year date of approval. So I just won't be supporting the amendment.
Sure. Thank you. I will speak briefly to the amendment. Look, the 4-year validity period aligns with the practice of almost all other local governments. It also aligns with the current DAP regulations. Beyond that, this is a sizable development. It is reasonable with a number of things that need to happen before it can get off the ground. I think it's reasonable to provide this additional time to substantially commence, because unlike applications that go via a local government avenue, if an extension of time is required, it will have to come back to the DAP for that extension of time. So I just think it makes sense. There needs to be detailed design, procurement of contractors, and in the current environment, that's all very difficult. So I think the 4 years makes sense for this DAP to apply. Obviously, the Shire can apply the 2 years to applications within its control, but I think that aligns with the DAP regs. Member, how do you wish to close?
Nothing further on that.
Thank you. I will put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Anything further?
Not from me, thanks.
No. All right, I too will.
Happy to go on.
No, you go.
Okay, all right. On the substantive, I'm comfortable with supporting this. I do note that there was a significant number of supporting submissions, 23, I think, approximately. The assessment that the Shire has done on the proposals for the over 55s, the assessment against the R codes, suggests that the majority of the elements are compliant. The variations on orientation and lot size, I think, are quite minor and acceptable. In terms of the short stay, again, that same assessment has been applied, even though it doesn't necessarily need to be under the codes. But the variations, again, I think are acceptable, and the overall development, aside from some of the comments from the Southwest Design Review Panel, which I think potentially we're not taking into account all of the details of the plans. I think the design does actually follow the design principles. So I think there's a balance here between the existing built form and natural environment of this location and the development that's occurring here. And I think that that's been achieved. Obviously, the commercial tenant's not confirmed. There is a minor parking shortfall, but I think there's sufficient on-street parking to deal with that. The height variation, in the context of new development, the height variation, I think, is not overbearing. And I think there will be other development of a similar nature and a similar height in the future. But I think it's still compatible, even though existing developments 1 and 2 stories. I think that additional height is perfectly acceptable. I would like to move a couple of amendments, please. Sure. First is to move conditions 25, 26, and 27 to advice notes and renumber.
Do I have a second?
They're really administrative matters outside of the Shire. Usually these matters about connection to services and so forth are in the form of advice notes, and the officer indicated that he was not averse to these being moved to advice notes in that.
Thank you. Member, how do you wish to speak?
No. Yep.
Any other member wish to speak to this amendment? All right, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Member
Thank
Hyde.
you. Condition 31, I believe needs to be reworded and a new advice note added. Condition 31 relates to a section 7A title notification.
Just 31 or 24?
Well, I don't have the wording for the 24 one.
I might just pull that up. Condition 24 requires a section 70A to the alerting landowners to the existence of the approved requirement.
Yes, is that the wording though, that alerting landowners to the existing? I suppose it does, doesn't it? Okay, so I would like to move an amendment to both condition 24 and condition, Is that right? Yes, condition 24 and condition 31. So
I'm happy to second that. You wish to
Okay.
speak to explain why?
So the preamble to both needs to be worded as followed. Prior to the commencement of use of the landowner shall provide consent to a notification. The word occupation is deleted. It continues pursuant to section 70A of the Transfer of Land Act 1893. The words is to be is deleted in condition 31, and the words must be deleted in the condition, replaced by the word being placed on the certificate of title, etc., etc. And then the notification is to state as follows. Condition 31, that wording is quite clear. The lots in the vicinity of the transport corridor. For the other condition, the notification is to state as follows. The wording at the full cost of the applicant is deleted, and it goes on to state alerting landowners to the existence of the approved bushfire management plan. A new advice note is required to go with those, that in terms of those conditions 31 and 24 are not imposing an obligation on the local government. If the local government chooses to lodge a notification under section 70A, the proponent's obligation is to give their consent to the local government's application and nothing more. I think I've got that wording. Okay, that's the amendment I'd like to make.
I have seconded that. Do you wish to explain why, or shall I do that?
We have been advised that the obligation is with the local government for these matters, and that the obligation with landowners is purely to consent to that. A number of other local governments are informing their conditions in their RAR in this way. We're simply updating this one to be consistent with that advice and the processes of other local governments.
Thank you. Look, as seconder, I'll just add a little bit to that explanation. The DAP was provided some in relation to an application some months ago, was provided with some information, legal advice that outlined what Member Hyde has said. Essentially, the section 70A, if the DAP approved that condition, the consent of the owner is required, but it's not on the onus of the owner to do it. If the local government wishes to do it, then they will need to do it. And the advice note makes it clear that there's no obligation for the local government to do it. So this is really just a tidy up, and we're applying this to all conditions of this nature on our approvals. Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? No? You, Member Hyde, is there anything further?
No, nothing further, thank you.
All right, let's vote on that amendment to amend condition 24 and 31 and add the associated advice note. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you, Member.
My last amendment is to condition 16 to delete the word to the specification of main roads WA.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Member Howe.
I think we discussed this at length. I think that it comes back again to need a nexus. I think that whilst this development is fairly significant, there are other users of section. There are other obligations on others to provide upgrades, and there's not an absolute need nexus with this specific development other than the proposal that they have made to reduce impact on those roads by moving crossovers, and simply then to make sure that that crossover aligns appropriately with slip road and so on and so forth. So Our earlier discussion suggested that the issue was around the requirements of main roads. This rewording obviously relies now only upon the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel, but the Shire is still obliged and will liaise with main roads. But the specifications of main roads at that more significant level are no longer a feature of this condition.
Thank you, Member. How do you wish to speak?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak for or against this amendment? I will speak very briefly. I think the amendment does not cut main roads out of the picture. They obviously have responsibility for that road and they will still be closely involved. What it does is it just doesn't lock the Shire and the applicant into the specific solution that was recommended by main roads at the referral point, which appears to me there's already discussion about an alternate. So this is just to tidy that up. So I'm happy to support. All right, let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Nothing further from you? All right, I will also be supporting the recommendation for approval. I have another few tidy up conditions. Thank you for your patience. If you'll bear with me, I would like to seek to delete condition 6D. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Thank you, Member Hyde. Look, the reason is that point, as discussed with the Shire staff, is confusing and it's unnecessary. The paragraph below it requires implementation for the life of the plan or for the life of the development. So there's no need for the inclusion of that point. Do you wish to speak? No. Any other member wish to speak? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And I would like to amend condition 13, which relates to the operational management plan, to add a paragraph that states the operational management plan is to be implemented from occupation and for the duration of the development to the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Member Hyde. The reason for me wanting to include this wording, there is currently no wording actually requiring implementation of the approved operational management plan. It just requires approval of the plan. The additional wording, whilst it might be implied in putting the condition in place, it just will make it easier for the Shire in the hopefully unlikely event compliance action is ever necessary in future. Does any other member wish to speak for or against the amendment? Let's put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Then I would like to delete condition 15 and include it instead as an advice note. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Thank you, Member Hyde. Look, this matter is covered under separate legislation. It will be dealt with via a separate approvals process. It is therefore more appropriate for inclusion as an advice note. Does any other member wish to speak for or against? No, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'd like to delete condition 17, which requires preparation of a traffic management plan for the construction phase. Seconded Member Hyde. The reason being this is already captured as part of condition 7, which requires a construction management plan. And one of the dot points under that requires traffic management plan. So it's just a duplication. Any other member would speak for or against that? No, let's vote on it. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. A couple more. Amend condition 18, which relates to lighting design, to add the following wording at the end of the condition. And thereafter implemented in accordance with the approved design to the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Thank you. The reason is there's no actual wording requiring implementation of the approved lighting design. So this is just to make sure that that occurs when it's meant to. Does any member wish to speak for or against? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And then I'd like to amend condition 20, which deals with planting, to reference the approved landscape plan that's required by condition. The condition would then read, prior to occupation, the landscaped areas shown on the approved development plans and approved landscape plan must be planted, reticulated, and thereafter maintained to the satisfaction of the Shire. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Thank you. There is no, condition 3 actually requires a landscape plan to be submitted and approved by the Shire, but there's nothing in the rest of the condition that actually requires that plan to be implemented. So this is just a tidy up of that. Does any other member wish to speak for or against? No. Let's vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'm not going to say much more. It's all been said, but I'm happy to support this proposal, which includes much needed residential accommodation and great amenity for both the residents that will be living full-time on site and visitors. I know the submissions of support that were received for the proposal, and though there were 2 submissions that raised concerns about height and some uncertainty about setbacks and landscaping, I'm comfortable that these matters have been addressed in the Shire's Responsible Authority report. Specifically, I note that the proposed setbacks comply with the R codes, and landscaping will be dealt with via a detailed landscaping plan that needs to be approved by the Shire. Although the height exceeds the provisions of the Shire's policy, it meets the requirements of the codes, and the Shire's done a good job of justifying why the height is acceptable in this case. I also note that the applicant responded appropriately to the advice received from the design review panel and some of the external referral bodies. So I think it's a very high quality design, multifaceted development that will contribute well to the vibrancy of the area, to the community of Capel. So happy to support. With that, I move back to the mover of the substantive. Councillor Shire, is there anything you wish to add?
No, there's nothing additional I wish to add in closing. I think just to summarise the fact that I'm satisfied that the application is a suitable land use and permissible within our local planning scheme, and that any inconsistencies I think have been addressed by the applicant staff and the design review panel. I'm also, in hindsight, satisfied with the amendments that have been made and some of the pathways that have been implemented through those as well, and appreciate the input from other panel members on that. So I'm happy to support the substantive recommendation.
Great, thank you very much. We will then put that recommendation for approval, subject to all those amendments that have been made, to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 4, Form 2 DAP applications for Capel. There are none today, and there are also no Section 31 SAT reconsiderations. Other business, anyone interested in the SAT applications or Supreme Court appeals for the DAPs, these are all listed on the DAP website. With that, I call the meeting to a close at 12:20 p.m. and I thank our DAP members from the Shire of Capel and all the other DAP members that have participated today for your attendance and participation. I thank the Shire staff for your contribution and assistance today, for the applicants for coming in and putting forward your case and having the appropriate conversation, and to our wonderful DAP team for happen in the first place. So thanks to everybody. Enjoy the rest of today's